In defense of debate, there is only one problem with debate I hear, and it's that your platform is that you're platforming the opposition. The problem with this assertion, of course, is that unless you avoid talking about the opposition altogether, you will invoke them and cause anybody listening to you to go watch them to make sure you aren't slandering them or taking things out of context. In fact, this is the strength of debate. You cannot be accused of straw manning since the opposition is right there and can call you out. Third, if an issue is decided in your mind, say the issue of global warming, that doesn't mean it is in the mind of the public. They still view it as something maybe to be skeptical of, since there is a loud and powerful opposition. They aren't going to feel confident in what you say until you dismantle the arguments of the other side. If you don't, you are going to come across as weak, and why shouldn't you? Debate is like a test in science, but instead of using experiments, it uses formal logic. Your opponent will attempt to find any contradiction in your views, and as annoying as you may find this, just as with experimentation, it's a powerful way to test your ideas. The more questions you can answer, the more you and anybody listening to you will feel confident in what you say. Another thing I should mention, since I've been studying psychology recently, there is a thing called evaluability. People will value something more if they don't have a reference point. People will, for example, pay more for a dictionary if there isn't another dictionary they can compare it to. If you leave people in their own echo chambers, the ideas they discuss will fester and become increasingly worse. You may think shitposting is dumb, but it's actually highly effective at getting people to rethink their ideas. Probably not deeply embedded in that type of thought, but you can chip away at the outliers, people just listening in for the first time. To give an example, if somebody tunes into Ben Shapiro for the first time, one of the first places they're going to look is the like button and the comment section. People have a desire to conform. I encourage anybody to look up the Aschke social experiment. By being a dissenting voice and by disliking the video, you will immediately decrease how many other people dislike it as well by leaving a negative comment. Not only that, but this is where evaluability comes in and referencing comes in. If you leave a well thought out comment on exactly why you find it wrong, alone, a person might perhaps find a video by Ben Shapiro to be well argued if they have no alternative arguments to counter what he is saying. It is not enough to trust that the public will have the critical thinking skills to pick apart the video. I wish that were the case, but we all know historically organizations like the Nazis or the KKK can be successful. And people can make persuasive arguments that sound good if you don't think about them carefully. I can remember in high school hearing libertarians say they just wanted freedom. Me, like most other people, value freedom, and I was persuaded by that argument. It wasn't until I was older that I realized its flaws. You say you value freedom, but you are for the police. Oh, so you are against freedom when it affects others. But then why are you allowing companies to pollute the environment that we all live in? The minimum wage is a half measure. No doubt the minimum wage needs to be raised, but in a few years, as inflation rises, it will need to be raised again. Instead of this constant battle to raise the amount of money you must pay for the constant rising price of goods, why not either fix permanently the price of goods people are buying, or give those goods away for free through social services? Until that happens, of course, I will stand by along anybody demanding higher wages, but it's just something I thought you should think about. Using tricks to make an argument more persuasive. It would be nice if people just listened to logic. Unfortunately, people are also swayed by emotion. This is how Nazis took power. And if you don't want that to happen again, it might be important to broaden how we reach people. There are certain appeals you can make that are psychologically proven to be effective. In fact, appealing to logic, or at least consistency, is one of them. Another is appealing to authority and appealing to popularity. Of course, referencing that something is popular does not make it true. This is nonetheless an important factor in swaying people, which is why I often check Pew Research to see if liberal causes are becoming more popular. Simply sticking to logical arguments would be nice, but of course, as I just said, or as I've said before, we must operate in the world as it is, not how we wish it to be. Martin Luther King didn't do shit. I've said before, I don't like nonviolent sit-ins or protests, but more importantly, I don't think MLK did anything whatsoever. All those protests in the South didn't make Southerners end segregation. Just like with slavery, they were forced to by the North. You can't convince a sociopath to love you. They just don't have that capacity, and that's who ruled the South. They were murdering children on a regular basis. Was anybody surprised that the guy in Grizzly Man Diaries got eaten? Because that's the way I view MLK. Some people are animals. If you shared a cell with Ted Bundy, would you feel confident that you could reform him before he killed you? Isn't it obvious that some people just have something seriously wrong with their brains? For today's struggles, I think it's also important to just forget about the South and instead focus all of our energies on depriving them of support in the North. What Stacey Abrams is doing is good, getting people who are liberal registered to vote, but don't waste your time that you could spend creating real change talking to a wall. This is also why I support the boycotts. There isn't any Southerner in power who's going to be swayed by the tisking of a CEO. You need actual force. Do you really think they don't know what they are doing with all these voter suppression laws? Groups versus individuals. Working in a group as opposed to working alone has both strengths and weaknesses. I can remember when Vosh first started getting kicked off YouTube. Other YouTubers rallied to his defense, and I have no doubt that's what helped him get his channel back on. When the Black Panthers got in trouble, having people protest outside the courtroom was a major advantage in getting them acquitted, and having places like Cuba to run to when the law started to crack down. On the other hand, by working in a group, they were easier to infiltrate and bring down. The FBI played off people against each other. Others turned informant. So I don't think there is a right or a wrong way to bring about change. I think everybody should just focus on what they prefer. This is also how I feel about which causes to go after. One of the biggest problems facing progressives after the Civil War was whether to focus on advancing women's rights or continue to advance black people's rights. It must have been very confusing for black women who were stuck in the middle. I can understand both perspectives. Frederick Douglass made a good point when he said he supported women's rights, but his people were being killed. I think it was Grimke who said women would be so much more helpful to black people's causes and other causes if they had political power, and that's true. Women tend to vote more liberally. I say freedom is the way to settle this, and that there isn't any right answer. Go with the topic you feel most strongly about, and try not to step on the toes of other progressives fighting for something else. I feel most strongly about ending poverty, and so that's usually what I get most riled up about. Although I do also fight for gay rights, women's rights, and transgender rights. Other people can do differently, and I feel no ill will. Moreover, to digress somewhat in education, I hate required classes in college. We need specialists and generalists, and no class should be required. Let people take the classes they want to take. Even in high school, I think there should be more freedom.